I got sued by Nintendo, Ludwig. I'm assuming this is gonna have something to do with Melee or some kind of Smash tournament or something, because I know that's his background and that's where he comes from. Background comes from same shit, different pile, eye blue. Yep. Okay.
Right there, officer. That's him. The one who looks like he shouldn't be within 50 feet of a school zone. Hi, I'm Ludwig, and I got sued
That's tough.
by Nintendo. It actually happened a few months ago, but I feel like it's worth bringing up now because of some huge drama and updates that have come out of the Smash scene. And even if you're the most casual of Smash fans, it's worth knowing about because this could change Smash as we know it. Or it could.
Okay.
But let's get into that in a little bit. First, back to me getting sued. It was technically a notice of infringement of intellectual property. And I'd show you the paperwork and verify it, but they did post my address in like ink in the background of every single piece of paper in this notice of infringement. So I can't actually show you.
Okay.
But to my very, very small understanding, I am a YouTuber after all, it's basically like a baby cease and desist. Because rather than saying, hey, you must stop and never do this, they were like, hey, you must stop and then follow our rules. You cannot use your rules.
Okay.
Now, what was the big rule difference? Well, basically comes down to modifying the game. If you don't know, I ran an event this past few months this year called the Ludwig Ogren Championship Series. It was a pretty damn big Smash Invitational with an open qualifier.
Okay.
And up to this point, some context, there is a stage in competitive Smash Melee called Pokemon Stadium. This is what it looks like. And in it, it has different transformations, right? It can look like this with a couple of big old platforms.
I remember that.
Like this with
I actually remember that. Me and my friends me and Andrew and another friend, we used to all play Super Smash Bros. I feel like it was Brawl, but it still had the Pokemon map, I'm pretty sure, and it would transform. I remember that. And maybe it was Melee. I don't know. I'm pretty sure it was Brawl.
with a big old windmill you can stand on. And over the past couple of years, people figured out they could modify it and freeze it. So it basically always looks like this. And it was basically
which is what you want for a bit of background. If maybe he'll say it, but for a bit of background in Smash, you just want to have like maybe one or two platforms, but one main platform. That's all you want.
less luck involved because some stages and transformations are good for other characters and not so good for other characters. And Nintendo was like, hey, we don't like when you modify our game. Please do not modify our game. So I didn't do that. And instead, we left the transformations on. We kept it vanilla Melee. You know, this shouldn't matter. It's like such a small thing. It actually determined the winner of my entire tournament because Leffen was losing very badly to Cody Schwab. He had 110%. Cody had 14%. The transformation came up. Leffen, using the back wall, got a huge combo. Ended up beating Cody. Ended up winning the tournament against Zane. So it literally determined the winner. Not that that's a huge problem because it was honestly really hyped to watch. But when there was a poll done in a Reddit afterwards, people were like, we want it frozen.
Yep.
We can't have it frozen, kiddos. It's not how it damn works because Nintendo doesn't want their game modified. And I'm allowed to talk about this now because they have been very forthright about all the things you must follow if you want to run a Smash event.
Yep.
In fact, they dropped a guideline, a community tournament guideline for every region. It first started with like Japan, then they dropped one for EU, and then they dropped one for America and Australia. And we're going to go through this guideline today because a lot of people were reacting in part overreacting to this guideline, thinking this could be the end of Smash tournaments as we know it. So let's take a look at these guidelines, which include in part that idea of not modifying the game, but then many, many more interesting things. So there's basically two things you have to think about here. The first one is community tournaments, which is basically like, hey, I want to run a tournament at my college or with my friends or in my local community.
Which has happened in my city or town. People pay like, I don't know, $10, $20, $15, whatever, to enter, and there'll be like 20 people. So it never exceeds this whatever 5,000 thing that's here. But yeah, so we used to do that. I haven't really taken part, but it happened a lot, and I've been around it. And that's so small that it's, come on, like it doesn't matter. And there was no profit. It was just everybody put money in. I guess there's profit for the business because people were buying drinks and Pokemon packs and chips and stuff, and it's good like advertising obviously, but for the actual tournament there was no winnings. There was no prize, but the prize was the money that everybody was putting in to enter. So if there were 10 people, $15 each, $150, then the winner would get 150, or it would be like 100 and then 50 for second place, whatever it was.
And if you do that, you're supposed to do these things. Like you can only have a tournament up to 200 participants in person, 300 online. You aren't allowed to collect more than $20 per person for like a tournament fee. You can't have a prize pool of more than $5K. Just outright. You just can't do that. You can't make more than $10,000 if you're a tournament organizer. I don't agree with all these outright. I don't think that, for example, a tournament organizer should necessarily only make 10K. I would feel fine if my local tournament organizer was able to make a full-time living and then provide better tournaments because they don't have to do a job and then a side hustle that's a passion thing where they're not allowed to actually make money. I feel like that's a little weird.
And if it seems like I'm not saying much about this, it's because I genuinely don't know, and I'm super interested. So I'm just obviously letting him speak. If I have an opinion, I'll say something. But right now, I'm just really I'm learning. I'm trying to learn because this is interesting. Because who knows? We might get to a point to where I want to throw off a tournament and it'll probably be in COD or something like that. And maybe I'll want to throw off a tournament. Maybe we'll get big enough that we do that. Even as a community, I could have 200 to 300 people who want to enter in a tournament, and knowing that, that's important with Nintendo.
A couple of weird specific rules that they threw in. Like they went into this very, interesting rant about how you're allowed to technically have more than 200 people at a tournament if you do them in blocks, and the blocks happen on different days. And then they also go into details about if you wanted to run a charity event at a high school. So a lot of specificities, but a lot of people are probably wondering, well, Ludwig, what happens if I want to run a huge event? Or if one of my favorite tournament organizers wants to continue to run their huge 1,000-person events with.
So I'm assuming he's talking about like BTS, like behind the summit or beyond the summit, something, whatever. That's where Aiden and Slime and Nick, maybe Slime, but I know Aiden and Slime worked. And I'm pretty sure Ludwig was, I don't know if he was a part of it, but that's like one of the big tournament organizers. Or you think about like game battles or something like that for Call of Duty. It's interesting. I'm excited to see what he says about this.
Thousands of dollars in prize pool. Is that able to happen? Can it only be 200 people? If 201 come along, is Nintendo going to come and shoot them in the head? No, not necessarily, at least. The way it looks right now is that if you want to run a large event, you must get permission from Nintendo. Right?
Okay.
You must get a license and submit an application for license to use Nintendo games at your tournament. And if you get a license, then you are conceivably allowed to break most of the rules, like the player entry rule, the prize pool rule, and maybe the how much you make rule. I'm not really sure about that one. It doesn't really affect me per se because I lose so much damn money running Smash events anyway.
Yeah.
And they might not accept your event if you break these. These are kind of like the hard and fast rules, the Bill of Rights, if you will, the ones that just absolutely cannot be violated by Nintendo. They won't approve an event if you do any of these. If you violate laws, infringe IP, fake that you have a license, and then interestingly here, involve any cheating, unauthorized access, modification of the game itself, aka why they came for me, why they sent me that baby cease and desist. And then there's some vague things here, like if you use game consoles, accessories, and software not licensed by Nintendo. So I don't know if you have a Mad Catz controller, are they going to come kick you in the throat? I don't know. That seems like really hard to regulate by Nintendo. And there's an interesting conversation to be had about the box as well, which is a whole nother can of worms I don't need to get into. But if you happen to follow all of these and you send in your request to Nintendo to authorize your event, then conceivably you should be able to run an event of really any size.
Interesting.
At least that's the idea as it seems. And Nintendo, that's at least what it seems, does have the right to cancel anything. Right? They can cancel any community tournament if there's 307 people instead of the 200 people allowed, or they could conceivably cancel any big event or not give them a license if they do not see fit. And to understand this all, it is basically Nintendo trying to capture back control of their IP. And I think it's mostly for Smash Ultimate. In fact, if you look at the Japanese guidelines.
Yeah, well, before I go into, or he goes into it, that's the thing, like, you'll notice that Melee tournaments get so much more views and probably more professionals than Ultimate. And that's just because Melee has been in the community for so long, dude. And Ultimate is a great game. I played it a bunch. But Melee's been in the community so long, and I can't speak on it as much, but even back when I was in high school, like a bunch of my friends would go to this guy's house and they would play Smash. Like it's like it is just ingrained, and the mechanics are so good, and I feel like everybody thinks it's just so fluid. And whenever you think about Super Smash Bros, you think about Super Smash Bros Melee. You think of Melee Tournament, Melee, Mango and Hungrybox, Melee, Mewtwo King, Melee. So it really is just at the top, and it's interesting because you'd think with a new game, you know, getting support from Nintendo, stuff like that would be more important, but there has to be something that you'll get into here that keeps them coming back to Melee and it being that important game. And they don't want to do anything. I know he's talked about Nintendo not wanting to do anything with tournaments and stuff for Melee. Like, they want to shut it down pretty much because they want Ultimate to be the forefront of Nintendo's Smash franchise. And I guess this is their way to try to rein it in to, like, because the last like 10-15 years Melee has been running free, not free, but like it was in the 2010s, everybody was having tournaments, it was the biggest Smash, stuff like that, right? So it's interesting. I'm gonna see what he says here.
They don't even mention Melee in it, the much older game that I care a little more about because it's a game I came from. But in the North American one, they do, because they kind of have to, because we forced their hand, because we've kept their game alive for much longer than I think they would have liked to. But in the conversations that my team has had with Nintendo, they've seemed pretty open to letting us run events. And they said that they would try to give permission for events to be run within a reasonable time frame, like 1 to 2 months. And that's the big concern here. Because none of these guidelines truly matter. Most locals will be too small for Nintendo to know or care or be able to keep up with anyway. So if you have 205 people instead of 200, they're not going to give a rat's ass. And then the big events, they have to get permission from Nintendo. And so as long as they give the permission, it's fine. Yeah, we can't have Frozen Pokemon Stadium, but I don't think that is the worst thing in the world if we're able to continue running events for the next 10 or 20 years or so. And as far as that question, how quickly will Nintendo actually be giving out these licenses, we have a little bit of an idea, because these have already rolled out in Japan. The applications to get your event license has already rolled out in Japan, and it's happened really fast. A Japanese Hokkaido local submitted their form in the Nintendo guidelines, and it got accepted in 1 day. And one of the largest events in Japan, Sumabato, applied, and they got accepted for 10 events. The next 10 events are totally fine to be run. So it seems as though Nintendo's actually doing a good job of keeping up, giving licenses for their events, at least in the Japanese scene. Hopefully they follow suit in the North American scene, the European scene, the Australian scene, or wherever.
I agree, and Nintendo doing that is super important, because obviously you want to be able to just run tournaments and it doesn't matter, like, whatever. But you can run into issues, and it is their IP, so I get they want to rein it in, whatever. But if all it is going through them and it takes a few weeks to get your license to ensure that everything is, like, through Nintendo legally, I mean, honestly, if I was to put off an event, I would feel more comfortable if I went through Nintendo and got a license for it, because I'd feel like it's okay that I'm doing this event and I'm not going behind their back. It's a good feeling when you get a license for something. I've been around where we get licenses for things for charities. I've been doing certain charity work for, not so much the last few years since COVID, but it was a good almost 10 years that I was doing charity work for a certain charity. And I've been around those kinds of things, and you really want to make sure your legalities are in check. Cross your T's, dot your I's, and I love how Ludwig, like, even though he's a content creator, even though he's super busy, podcast, streaming, YouTube, mogul mail, going everywhere and doing everything, collaborations, a genius creator, but he still is trying to do all this perfectly and legally, and he's trying to push the Smash Melee community forward, which is so tippable. Super cool. And I'm happy to see that, he's not actually sued, and Nintendo isn't actually really breaking down, like, or trying to tear down people like him that are trying to move a community forward and keep it alive.
Smash around the world. And that's basically it. That's the update. So it should be fine as long as they actually keep up with their applications and they approve them.
Yep.
Things should be good, but we'll see. And I'll let you guys know if they're like, hey, Ludwig, we don't like that you're putting up a prize pool of 50K. Because that's where I'd be like, well, what do you mean, man? These people are broke. They need some money. I don't mind doing it. I have a sponsor to cover it. Why not? That's where I feel like it would be crossing the line. And I'll leave it off with a little bit of a quote from the GOAT,
You can take my controller,
Mango.
my game,
Mango, baby.
my CRT. I'll tell you something. I'll play Melee in my fucking mind. As long as Melee lives, I will play. And if you take it all, we'll fucking play in a garage. 20 people there, hot, sweaty, gross. Me versus Zane behind a 7-Eleven for 25 bucks. And that's what it's always going to be. You don't understand that the money, the fame, nobody gives. Anybody who wants to be a top player gives no fucks about that. So if you try to shut us down, you'll never shut us down. You think you might, but I promise you with all my soul, you got nothing on the Melee community. So you can try. You're not going to succeed, whoever you are. Just remember that.
So those are the huge updates in the Smash community. That's how I got sued by Nintendo and what
Mango.
it actually means. And I'll keep you updated if anything else changes. All right, see you later. Subscribe. Goodbye. See you
Bye.
later.
See you later. Bye.
Are pay-to-win games ruining Roblox?
I don't know. W video from Ludwig.
Right.
Sorry to hear that he went into a little bit of trouble there, but I mean, it's whatever. I mean, he's obviously gonna come out of it ahead. Especially because he has a community behind him. There's a video. I put it in chat. Go give it a like. Give it a comment. Ludwig's. I can't say he's one of my favorite creators now because I don't watch him as much, so that would be, disingenuous. But he was my favorite creator for a good, I actually started to see stuff on Ludwig, truly, when he was doing the journalist thing on the Rust OTV server. So I watched him a little bit during that, a little bit during COVID, and I really liked his, subathon, obviously. But I watched him a lot after the subathon, and it was, his content's always amazing, so. And he's friends with Mr. Beast, so yeah, you gotta like and comment because of that. So, yeah, W.